Deepstambh, illuminating the path of success for Brahmin entrepreneurs. In the ever-evolving landscape of entrepreneurship, where the pursuit of success is a journey laden with the challenges and triumphs, there emerges a beacon inspiration for aspiring business minds. Deepstambh, a flagship initiative of BBNG, that is Brahman Business Network Global, stands as a remarkable series of interviews that have ignited the entrepreneurial spirit within the Brahmin community. Deepstambh today has become a transformative platform fostering learning and growth through the narratives of accomplished Brahmin entrepreneurs from diverse sectors. Today we have with us Mr. Mukund Chitale, CA by profession and who was chairman, member of advisory board on various government bodies, independent director on various top companies like ONGC, L&T, Citigroup, and in his firm he has got 9 partners and more than 20 CAs. His international exposure: he was a member of the International Auditing Practices Committee on the International Federation of Accountants. Mr. Mukund M. Chitale started his practice with the firm Mukund M. Chitale and Company in the May 1973. The firm has entered its 50th year of practice. The firm renders services in the field of taxation, audit, consultancy, forensic investigation, etc. The firm is having its offices in Mumbai and Pune. The firm is handling statutory audits of large corporations, bank, insurance companies and listed companies, etc. Sir, welcome to our initiative Deepstambh. Today, this is Vivek Wamorkar, Development Coordinator for BBNGA and as well as the Mumbai Region Coordinator for Deepstambh. Along me, we had Aishwarya Kale, who is by profession CA, so that's why she is accompanying me. Sir, we can start our interview, but the first question, after going through your profile, your Indian Chartered Accountant have recognition all over the world and you have graced the highest position of Chartered Accountant fraternity, that is President of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India. Sir, would like to know how you entered in this profession and whether you have any family background for the same.
I remember 1965, I think I passed my SSC, maybe 69 I passed graduation and 72 I did my CA. That time doing articleship was a tough period and getting articleship was not so easy. I did it in a firm called A. Ferguson and Company, which was the topmost firm at that time. And for getting the articleship there, I had to register myself with the firm 3 years in advance. And they had put the condition that if I get more than 50% marks in each examination, then only I'll get articleship. So it's only when I complied with that that I could start my articleship. The articleship was from 69 to 72. Fortunately, I passed both exams in the first attempt, etc. So 72 I passed out my CA. Then for 6 months I worked with the same firm called A. Ferguson and Company. Next 6 months I joined Pfizer. That was 1st January 73 I think I joined Pfizer. Which was the topmost company at that point of time. I think at that time the salary was 1,200 per month, which was good at that point of time. And after 6 months they had to confirm my employment. So when I got the news that I am going to be confirmed, somehow I had started thinking, and I think somewhere in May 73 I moved out of the office. When I told the boss that I am going to leave the service, he was naturally slightly upset. He asked me, what are you going to do? I said, I am going to be in practice. His first question was, what do you mean by practice? I said, I don't know, but I'll start that. Then his next question was, do you have any client? I said, no, I don't have any client. Third question was, is there any CA from your family? And my answer was no, my father is in service, he is serving with Bombay Municipal Corporation. And my mother is a housewife. He was quite upset with my decision and naturally trying to take care of my interest. He tried to convince me, but I said, look, somehow I decided that I will go out. So I think somewhere on 1st June 73 I left the firm and started practice. So I think on day one there was no client, no office. I don't know what work to do, and just like that it started.
So as you mentioned, there is no family background also.
There is no family back. My father was in service. He was, even at that time, he was a graduate. So great credit to him. He was a BCom student, but he somehow preferred to do all many other social work. So he remained to be in service of Municipal Corporation of Mumbai. And my mother was a housewife. So perfect middle class family with this kind of a background.
Oh my God. Definitely, but at that time, as you mentioned, you got the 1,200 salary at that time, and all of a sudden you decided to leave the job. So, what was the reaction from the family?
I think that's a great credit to them, because father never asked me to stop doing anything.
Oh,
He asked me that, are you sure you want to do this? I said yes. He said, are you confident that you will go ahead with this? I said yes. Once I decide, I will do it. So it was great credit to parents that even at that point of time, and they did not stop me from doing something. They said, okay, if you are determined, please go ahead, but make it sure that you will do it. I think their only advice was that think over before you decide to do something. But if you decide that, then you must have the courage and the conviction to complete it. So I think hats off to both the parents who, in a way practically, I would say, prompted me or pushed me to do it as long as I had the courage and the conviction to do it.
great, great. So that is really wonderful, and I think that shows in throughout your journey, because your journey you started in 1973, and today your firm was the first firm to become the ISO certified CA firm. So would like to know more about that.
Yeah, very quickly, I think 73 when I started, as I said, I had no client, no office, nothing to be known about. The place where I did my articles was the biggest CA firm in the country, so therefore the audit experience was the main firm. But typically for a fresher, nobody used audit. And one fine day when I was cleaning my house, a friend of mine came and asked me, his name is Dr. Ashok Vaidya. He said, what are you doing? I said, I am starting practice. He said, okay, from tomorrow you do my work. So that's my first client. So even the first one came practically walking, and slowly we started working. I had a neighbor called Paranspe. So one day when he saw me just standing in my house, he asked me, what are you doing? I said, I have left my job and I am starting practice. He said, do you know what is the meaning of practice? I said, I am going to learn and I am going to do it. Where is your office? I said, I have no office. He said, wait. He went inside his house, came out and gave me a key, saying that, look, I have this small place in Chakala Street on Fort Side, start using as your office. I said, but sir, what is the rent? He said, no, you are my neighbor, surname is Chitralekha, and you are starting practice. So take this and use it as your office. So luckily the first client came walking, the first place for office came walking. So I think we started using that. So I would enter the office, clean the room, brooming, clean the table and start sitting in the office. There may be no client on few days, but I think the determination was very clear. Slowly I think people started joining, people started coming. So first few years I was a proprietor. Around 79, I think after about 6 years I took up a partner. And thereafter it has been steadily moving onwards. So 79 to 83 I think we were in the same place. Then there was a place at Chadi Road where we had the office. And around 93 we shifted to Vileparle where we took our own office. And slowly thereafter it is growing. So presently we are about 10 partners, and apart from partners we have about 50 full-time chartered accountants working with us, and about 100 students who are called article students who are working with us. Totally about 170. We have an office in Vileparle and one branch in Pune. So broadly, the process of moving has been enjoyable. It had its own plus and minus, but I think I've been enjoying it.
Nowadays, young generation is choosing chartered accountancy as a profession. Would you like to give some advice for the young chartered accountants on how to be successful as CAs?
Let me take my own case. I think the time when I started the practice, it was the year 1973, and my membership number is 14,054. That means in India, around that time there were 15,000 CAs, and the country as such was not something which was opened out. So naturally, the people who started practice around that time used to start as a proprietor. Many had their backgrounds from family doing business. So naturally, they would have some relatives, some friends who would come as clients. Typically, with the surname of Chitale and father working in municipality, uh, we had no person in the business. As I mentioned, I got my first client just as a friend, or I got my first office to sit again as a neighbor. But that's just a God-given gift. It does not necessarily happen with everybody. And your question is what to do about it. I think the first point that one must remember is that this is a profession and not business. Here the progress will happen in arithmetic progression and not in geometric progression. This is a long road which one has to take. Those who want to take jump, like 2 minutes noodle, then I think profession is not the road for that. Now this might sound too harsh, but I think this is a reality. Anyone who wants to start a practice has to have the patience, the courage and the conviction that this is a knowledge-based activity that one is starting, and as long as you keep it knowledge-based, at some point of time you are bound to succeed. I think those who do not have the confidence should not start it. First point. Secondly, the way in which the country has progressed in the last 50 years, I think the manner in which people should do practice is also changing. Around 72, starting a proprietary concern and trying to build up over a period of time was quite normal. And I think I know a lot of my friends who have done the similar way. But if I look at last 20 years, especially after 92 when the country has opened out, I think the things have changed. Now, small is not beautiful, now the big is beautiful. Now, if the big is beautiful, a profession also cannot remain behind this kind of an economic environment. Because ultimately, all of us must remember that a profession is a support activity to the business. And therefore, the manner in which the business grows, the profession also will have to grow. So today, if somebody has to start a practice, and if he decides to start alone, I think the road ahead might be quite tough. I'm not saying whether you should do it or not, it's always a personal choice. But in today's economic environment, starting practice in a combined fashion, being together is a better option. Nowadays, people are used to go to DMart and buy everything. They don't go to Kirana shop to buy something. So, departmental store approach has become quite common. A small shop, in theory, is considered good, but it doesn't do business. So, if you want to have a satisfaction of doing business and doing it economically well, I think in practice one will have to start doing it collectively, and therefore the more the people come together, the more they do the things together, it will be useful. Secondly, a profession has to be a value-based profession, because if you want to live for a longer period and leave your name behind you, then I think the values on which you grow are equally important. Now, what do you mean by value? Everybody can decide, but I think that's a fundamental activity of profession. Because when the profession has started giving up the values, then we get the blame for doing wrong things in the profession. So if one has to do the activity as a professional activity, I think few things are required. One will have to do it more in a combined activity. Remember that this is not something which will give you very quick money in very short term, but in the long term it is bound to give you good money, reputation and the name. And the thirdly, if you keep the values intact, you are bound to succeed. The question is, do you have the patience and the confidence in yourself that you can do it? I think those who have been able to successfully do it.
Sir, as you said, your firm has completed 50 years now. So would you like to give any piece of advice for the first generation entrepreneurs, like some do's and don'ts for them, or some red flags that they should be observing in their businesses?
Yeah, if you look at the word entrepreneur, normally it is something which in a way covers business, profession, trading and any activity. first generation entrepreneur, more or less would mean that the parents have been doing some other activity and the first time when somebody is starting either a business or profession. I think first let me talk about the profession. Those who are doing profession should very clearly remember that they have to be more knowledge based and that should remain to be the fundamental activity. Those who are in business would have their own areas of work and accordingly they will choose the areas which they want to do. If I have to talk generally and based on the experience that we have with our clients, my observations in general are something which tells me that the people who start with technical knowledge, which is very excellent, they start their activities, they start their factories, but somehow many of them believe that they know everything. Having started business, first few clients are easy to get, first few employees are easy to get, but it's a question of only achieving the scale. And for achieving the scale, I think different functions of the business have to be kept in mind. And I think that's found to be the first trouble. A technology-oriented entrepreneur who is excellent in technology, science, and whatever field normally neglects marketing, or neglects finance, or neglects the administration. Now, if that is done, I think the growth beyond a point doesn't take off. Somebody who is expert in one area doesn't go look at the other area. So I think the first fundamental objective of business is that we have to grow the organization and the organization has to go beyond one generation. And I think that is something which all of us have to learn, that if we try to keep it individual oriented, things never grow into an organization. So any business who is doing a business should remember that he is more of a trustee of the business and he must do it for the activities which are bigger for the organization. He has employees, he has customers, he has suppliers whose long-term interests he should be able to take care of. Extracting the best out of the person is subject to the limit that the other person also should remain satisfied. I think when these secrets are not kept in mind, certain businesses grow very well in the first few years, but then they slowly start coming down. I would say the same thing for profession. Somebody who is a great professional, unless he develops the organization, his name may evaporate after his age starts taking its toll or when he is not in the world. So even in the profession, have you grown the organization? Have you given importance to developing the people around you? Have you taken the second level, third level person? Are you looking at your customers and suppliers in a balanced manner? I think these are the things that one has to keep in mind. The other aspect which typically in India we find is that some people at least have complete disrespect for the law. I think that is something which we have to overcome. Law is there to stay in all countries. You may not agree with some law, but I think while you are doing business, compliance with the law is a necessity. In case somebody doesn't agree with the law, he has all the means to collectively, socially, and from various other manners, make efforts to make changes in the law. But I think if you are doing business, then compliance with the laws and regulations is a must. Those who do not pay attention to this aspect suffer in the long run. The government does not make law by asking you what law we should make, but government certainly carries the logic of the nation before making the law. And therefore, I think what is necessary at the individual, professional, business level is that as far as my business is concerned, I will comply with the law. If I got some different suggestions, then I must have a different environment through which I will reach to those people who can make changes in the law. If you are confident about yourself, you can always find a solution to a given problem. So don't look at a problem as a stumbling block, but look at it as an opportunity by which you can overcome that and go ahead in a different fashion. I think the COVID has taught all of us that you can do things differently. Something which we would have never thought of in the past has been taught to us by COVID. So I think somebody who is in business must know how to tackle problems, opportunities, and convert them into a positive environment. I think the fact that I can do it, the fact that I have my confidence to do it, is a basic necessity. I think that's all that I would suggest for anybody who is in business or a profession.
Sir, we would like to know more about the journey from getting your first client to your experience as a director in top companies representing various sectors like banking, insurance, petrochemical, petroleum products, etc. What will advise youngsters for choosing the sectors that they should focusing for their career?
Yes, if you look at the position as a director of a company, I think that is something which is prevailing in the country for a long time. But after the onset of this concept of corporate governance, the outside people called as independent directors being appointed by company has increased substantially. And fortunately, I have been holding such positions in good number of companies in the last few years. If I look back, I think it was in the year 1998, that means, yes, about 25 years ago, that I first became an independent director in one company. I feel that's always the more difficult one, because who would ask you to become an independent director unless he or she knows you? So having been in the practice for a certain number of years, somebody had known me and the person asked me to become an independent director. And thereafter, once you work in a group, it is normally the people who are with you in the group, the other directors, keep on recommending your name. A big name called 360-degree approach is something which prevails in the entire life of anybody. So when you're working in a company as an independent director, the CFOs, the managing directors, the other directors of the company keep on taking your name and they keep on talking about you at other places. So I think that's how I've been moving from one place to another. The companies in which I've been able to work are quite good. I think somewhere in 2003 I was appointed as an independent director of the company ONGC, which is the largest oil operating company in the country, and I was the chairman of audit committee. I had a good experience of working there. The chairman of the company was Subir Raha, who was an outstanding IS officer that I have met, and he had a good amount of confidence in me. So I think we could do lots of things in that area. Around that time, I got a phone call whether I could become an independent director in a company called Larsen & Toubro. And I think I was taken as independent director sometime in 2004. And first phase of 5 years, 2004 to 9. Then second phase of 5 years, 2009 to 14. So by 2014, when the Companies Act came, I was already in the company as an independent director for the last 10 years. After 2014 came the limitation that you can be an independent director in a company only in a span of 10 years, that means 5 years, 2 terms. Now, L&T is not a promoter-driven company, it's a professionally driven company, all public shareholders. I've been fortunate that 2014 again I was appointed as an independent director, and 2019 again I was an independent director. So, this March 24 I will complete 20 years of remaining as an independent director in a company like L&T. I would say I've been fortunate to work with different types of people in different companies. Reserve Bank of India has also taken me in different companies. I was in one committee, I was working with Mr. Verma, who is the ex-chairman of State Bank of India. The other committee was Mr. Bhave, who was ex-chairman of SEBI. One more was Tarapur, who was ex-deputy governor. And Tarapur committee especially was enjoyable because the members were Tarapur as the chairperson, Mr. M.G. Bhide, ex-chairman of Bank of India, C.B. Bhave, ex-chairman of SEBI, myself, and one more person. I think we used to enjoy that period. What I noticed in companies was that you should be willing to give all your professional knowledge for the development of the organization without trying to extract something out of it for you as a person. When you try to extract something for you as a person, I think the others realize that he is not suitable for the organization. I think that distinction is very clear. Now, as long as you keep working for the organization, even if you don't agree with people in power, generally you are not asked to move out. At least that's my experience. So I think your question is about moving from practicing person to this. The only thing is that if I am working in L&T as an independent director, I know that L&T is the objective for which I am working. and what is good for the company is where I will apply my knowledge. If I don't agree with something on management, I am politely but very clearly able to tell them that look, this is something I don't agree and therefore company should not do it. Fortunately, over a period of time, there have been occasions where with the management my views were not necessarily matching, but when they listen to the logic of what I am saying, I think it makes a difference. Many of us have a habit of saying that this is my opinion. I think in a country like ours, only Mr. Palkhiwala could have said that this is my opinion and all of us would have listened to it. Any other person has to say why you are giving that opinion. So by and large, I try to say that this is the law under which this is the position and this is why I am saying something, or this is a regulation because of which I am saying something, or this is a principle because of which I am saying something. I think if one is able to explain the logic behind an opinion, the other person has to question that logic rather than questioning your opinion. I think that makes all the difference to the commercial situations, and therefore the arguments don't go beyond a point. Others may not necessarily agree with you as an opinion, but if you give your logic of the opinion, others find it difficult to counter it unless there is a stronger logic behind this. So I think the experience of working as an independent director has been extremely useful. Typically as an auditor, one is used to find problems, but as a director, you have to find solutions also. Now that helped substantially in our growth as a profession in practice, because when we do the audit, many of our people have the habit of finding out questions and saying, look, this cannot be done, this cannot be done. Whereas having worked as a director, one goes into the role of saying that, look, within the parameters of the law and the regulations, if you want to do it, how can you do it? So I think finding a solution to the problem is a habit which my being independent director of various companies helped me, and that helps us substantially in the profession which I am still carrying on.
So many a times the young entrepreneurs or the young business people or the budding entrepreneurs do not look into their financial statements or the taxation part. What do you advise them or what would you suggest them?
I think that's a very practical and good question. Fortunately, as of now, we are handling as big a client as Bank of India. We do the audit for them. We have done audit for Reserve Bank of India. And we also have the audits of the smallest begin with entrepreneurs. So I think I can tackle with both of them. Let's talk about, as the word used is SME nowadays, micro, small, medium, etc. I think most of them start with some good idea, either trading, manufacturing or consulting, grow up to a point, and then they fumble in terms of growth of the organization. The first requirement is a business requires a 360-degree approach. That means you must have your technical knowledge perfect, you must have your organization clearly, you must have your finance properly, marketing and the recovery. Finally, one must remember that cash is king. If you sell products but if you are not able to recover the money, that business is not charity. You must be able to recover the money. Now, how does one combine all these into one person? I think the answer is actually no. All of us cannot be Sri Krishna who does everything on his own. So what does one do? Then one has to find out experts in respective areas, take them together as your colleagues, partners, employees, consultants, whatever relationship is required. But you need people from HR, you need people from administration, you need people from marketing, you need people in manufacturing, and you need people who can even guide you. I think every SME must remember that all along he must both a mentor and a mentee. While you are doing business, you will always keep on learning from somebody. If your habit of learning stops, I think your business stops. And while you are doing your business, you must also have the ability to mentor somebody. Now, this is not academic mentoring, this is a person mentoring. Secondly, finance is an area which is normally neglected because it is considered to be easy to obtain, especially with lots of banks and NBFCs running after you for getting money. But nobody is coming to you to give money free. So the money comes with a cost. And the cash in the pocket is not cash equal to profit. So I think one must start developing the habit of measuring profit and not measuring cash. That is where the importance of accounts, accounting, etc. comes in. The habit of reviewing your present position of balance sheet on a monthly basis is a necessity. Monthly may be theoretical, but at least on a quarterly basis, every business must look at, have you made a profit or have you made loss? You are in business because you want to make profit. Now, if you are not making profit, I think you're better don't be in a business. Now, this kind of language sometimes is hard to communicate to people, but I think that is a necessity. Secondly, compliance with the laws, regulations, payment of taxes, etc. Typically, when the people come to us, they tell us in advance, I want to pay only so much tax. With respect, I normally tell the person, then you have not come to the right person, you go to somebody else. We will tell you how much tax should be paid based on your business. We will evaluate, we will advise you what to do, and then you can pay your tax, which is a consequence of your profit. Business cannot be planned to exceed or not to exceed because the taxes are more. I think the growth of business is more important. Tax would become incidental or consequential. Now, those who pay attention to this aspect are able to grow better. As the business grows, you will need banking, you will need loans, you will need money to be raised. Now, unless your balance sheet is strong, how are you going to raise loans? Now, many people miss this point. So, they might be really earning well, but if their balance sheet is not good, the bank will not be willing to give funding to such business. I think this is more fundamental in business, that I want to make it to organizations which will grow beyond myself. I will take care of various aspects of the business, and then I will ensure that the business grows to some extent. All of us, when we talk about large corporates, we are willing to advise them what to do because advice is very easy. I think many people have saying that Tata should have done this, Birla should have done this. But same principles, are you applying in your own business? Many times the answers are, really speaking, no. Why? Because advising somebody is easy, but implementing that advice yourself is normally difficult. So I think as an SME, one must learn that I am doing business because I like it, I want to make profit, and I want to grow it to go beyond my generation. If that's the case, then you can't be short planning, you must have the long planning. If somebody plans for a longer period, I think all these things come into the place. Those who want to do the planning for a short term exceed very well. They keep on borrowing, they keep on spending. In fact, many of my friends tell me that I would not talk of a community, but many of my friends who are in different communities, they tell me that in certain communities, when people take loan, they first build a bungalow and buy the car and don't spend the money for the business. I think it's a sure shot for failure. So money borrowed is for the business, and every rupee borrowed must generate profit. I think these are a few fundamental aspects which one must remember. If those are remembered properly, you can have your bungalow and the car in the subsequent period. But nowadays, because of the comparative analysis between the friends and peers, buying a car, buying a bungalow, buying an AC is a prior necessity. I think that is something which should come out of your profit and not out of somebody else's money. I think those businesses who are able to remember this have been able to grow properly. Those who do not remember this, unfortunately, falter at various places. So I would say one must evaluate very, very clearly, am I making profit? Am I justified to spend this money? And in a different context, especially when it's a family business, sometimes I ask odd questions to these people that you are drawing so much salary. Would you have paid the same salary if the outside person was the managing director of your company? I think the business is making profit, then you can draw that salary. And the different question which I normally put across to them is, if you are not in your business and if you are employed, whether you would have got this much salary. I think these are two easy yardsticks to measure whether you are evaluating yourself in economic sense. If you are evaluating yourself properly in economic sense, then as a businessman, If your profit is the motto, if your business makes profit, yes, draw as much salary as you can. But if the business does not make profit, you have no justification for trying your remuneration. I think many times at the small level of business, these principles are not kept in mind, and unfortunately, that results into the so-called failure of business.
Sir, like we have the golden rules of accounting, would you like to suggest any golden rules or the thumb rules for the entrepreneurs for the success of their business?
I think if I knew the rules, I would have been the god. But based on the experience, I think let me try and think over this matter. See, people start business because they want to grow, they want to make money, they want to make profit. Let's assume that very clearly. Having said that, I think we already talked about what minimum things to be done. Those are done. But end of it, what is it, the purpose for which you are doing business? I think that has to be very, very clear. Business is not for time pass. Business is for achieving some name, fame and money. If that be the case, then the golden rules are only few. One is be conscious and be honest to your own business. Follow the laws of the land very clearly. Third, keep in mind that the profit is the motto, but profit not at any cost. Fourth, try and remember that after all, you are the trustee of the business, even if you are owner. And you must do business in a manner by which your next generation also will feel happy about doing the same business. Now, how does one achieve this? I think there are a lot of sacrifices which the first generation promoter has to make if this has to be achieved. And since we do not have bank audits, I can say, based on my experience in doing various audits of banks, that the so-called non-performance asset, at least in a few cases, arise because the money was borrowed for one purpose but was used for some other purpose. The money borrowed from bank is a social money, is a public money which you are borrowing. From where does the bank get money? The bank gets money from some other people who are putting the money into the bank. Now that has to be remembered, that when I borrow money from the bank, I must have the profitability of the business from which I can repay it in time. Now, if the business people don't keep this in mind and they start using that for other purposes, which in technical term is called diversion of funds, is what dangerous to the organization. So one peculiar thing which is noticed is, initially business is doing well, then the business person thinks of expanding the money, therefore they follow further, and then they get tempted to use the money for buying a car, developing your own bungalow, taking a foreign trip, etc., etc. I think the fundamental point is, all this is something which should be done if it helps your business to grow. If these are intended for personal satisfaction, I think these are not to be done out of borrowed funds. They can be done out of your profit for the year. So if the growth has to be achieved, the growth has to be object oriented. The money has to be used for the purpose for which they are borrowed. And if we use the money for the purpose for which you are borrowed, normally there cannot be a failure. I think the real economic failures come very, very rarely. My experience is that 90% of these failures come because the promoters do not use the money honestly for the purpose for which they are borrowing. This might sound too harsh, but I think that's the reality. And the earliest we start looking at this subject, it will be better. And you don't need an outsider to tell you that you are using it for an outside person. At any day when you are sleeping, if your conscience tells you, where have you spent the money? Have you spent it for the purpose for the business? And if your conscience says yes, I think you can sleep peacefully. But if your conscience tells you that no, you have done something which was not in the best interest of the business, I think that's the first pinch that you should get. And I think if you get that pinch, you must learn from the pinch and do it better. I would say nobody else is required to tell me how to do business. I myself can know this as long as I keep my conscience very clearly that I will do all my enjoyment out of my profit and not out of borrowed money from somebody else. I think that would be the basic rule on which one can do business.
Sir, your contribution to education field is also remarkable. We would also like to hear about your journey in educational field and as well as your experience in social work and what inspired you to get into this field.
Thanks for the question. I think it's a wonderful experience when I think back as to why I turned to education. I started practice in 1973, and as I said, there was no client, no work, no office. One of the days, one of my friends took me to one Mr. Khankoje, who was the head of the department at Kundanani College of Commerce. And Mr. Khankoje asked me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm starting practice." He looked at my profile, at marks, etc. He said, "Your academic record is very good. You start teaching in our college." Frankly, till that time, I had never even given a lecture. I was normally a last bencher in the college and the school. I never had any habit of public speaking, etc. So I told him, "Look, this is something which I have never used to, and I'm not used to go and speak before the students." He said, "Look, that is my problem. Looking at your biodata, I feel that you are someone who can go and teach in the college." I said, "Okay, let me make a try." So I think 73 I joined Kundanani College as a part-time lecturer in accounts. The Mumbai University had a rule at that time that the accountancy had to be taught by part-time lecturers. So I used to take about 9 lectures per week. There I worked from 73 to 78, 5 years I was teaching there. Around 78, I was called by Mr. Abhyankar, who was the vice principal of Srinagar College at that point of time. So one day he called me up, and those were not the days of mobile. So he told somebody to tell me, and that's how I went and met him. Now, Abhyankar had known me right from my days as a student at the college. So when I went and met him, he said, "Look, you have been in practice for 5 years. The Mumbai University rule is that this being a government college, we can take a person as a part-time lecturer only after 5 years, and therefore you better join this college as a lecturer." I tried to tell him that, "Sir, I am already working at some other college, and so why do you want to change?" He said, "Look, this is your college, you have been a student, and therefore you must join." Second time when I told him that, "Sir, it's I stay at Vileparle, so coming to Churchgate can be difficulty," he said, "Look, you have been a student of this college, and I am now saying that you please join this college." Then he went on to add one more thing. He says, "I know that your salary over there is 450 per month. I am going to give you only 400 per month, but still you have to join this college." And I think at that point of time, my respect for him as a vice principal or my teacher was so great that I just said yes and joined it. So I think around 78 I joined that college and continued there up to 1993. That's 15 years. There also I used to take about 9 or 10 lectures per week. On day one when I went there, one Mr. S.V. Gatalia, who was a great leader in our profession, who was the head of the department. So I went and asked him. I said, "Sir, you have any advice for me as a teacher?" He said, "Only one simple advice. You have been a student of this college, and the college is known for its students and lecturers both. Because I remember in 1978, Srinagar was considered to be the best commerce college in the city, and all business people's children used to go to that college." So he advised me in simple matters. He said, "Look, the college is known for its students and the lecturers. When you go to the classroom, you should be 200% sure of what even the students are not expected to know. If you know the subject well, you can pass through this college very easily. But if you are not prepared, the students will throw you out on day 2 or day 3, that be sure about it." I think that advice of such a senior person was extremely useful to me, and personally I have been trying to make myself ready for that situation. So all those 15 years when I was in the college, luckily I could muster support to such an extent that if my lecture starts at 9 o'clock, I used to close the doors of the room at 9 o'clock, and I never allowed any latecomers. So, and the classroom used to be normally full, 100 people in the classroom. And subsequently at social functions, I met parents of students who in a lighter way used to tell me that Mr. Chitle, you made my life tough, because my daughter used to tell me that I must reach Sidnam by 8:55, otherwise sir will not take me in the class. This is not a sense of pride, but this is a satisfaction that something which I was trying to do could get into the mold to such an extent that students felt attracted to it. I think my learning from teaching in a college has been fantastic, because our head of the departments were so strong that they used to change my subject and the class every year. So every year I was teaching in different class and a different subject like accountancy, costing, taxation, management accounting, auditing, and therefore one had to literally prepare for the teaching that you are doing. One more thing which I learned is that if I know a subject, I can only test it if I am able to communicate it to others in a proper fashion so as to make them understand it. I think my understanding is perfect only when I can make somebody else understand it at the same level. I think that's the learning which I got from my teaching. One more thing which I learned is that many of our education is based on how to do something. I used to teach students, why do you do something? I think, and if you look across, it is always important to remember, why am I doing it? I think once I understand why I am doing it, how I do it becomes very, very incidental. And this is an experience which I've tried in different fields where I work, and I think it has been a good experience. Fortunately, I was also a recognized postgraduate teacher at that time, so I used to take lectures at MCOM and other places. I was also a member of the Board of Studies of Accountancy at University of Mumbai, and presently I am a member of the Academic Council of the Mumbai University. I think the education field has taught me substantially and I used to enjoy. The so-called 360-degree approach is always tested in college totally. The students evaluate you completely. How good or how bad a lecturer is, only a student can tell you. And what they tell you in your face is not important. Do they say this when you are not around? I am at least fortunate that even today I meet some students who come and tell me, sir, I was a student in 1983, 1989, 1993, and they come and talk to me on their own when I would not even know that they were my students. I think that's a sense of satisfaction. Possibly the same thing push me to some other activities which are generally called the social work. I would never call it as a social work. I would say it's my habit to go and work for somebody else. It's my necessity to go and work for somebody else so that I get a better experience of making me a better person. I worked at a place which is called Keshav Srushti. It's a 200-acre area around Uttar. That's a parent trust under which there are 6 trusts. So I started working there as a managing committee member somewhere in 98. They have an educational institution which runs a school. I was the chairman of that school for about 6 years. Then in a way I would say promoted to become a member of the managing committee of Keshav Srushti, and then I was a chairman of Keshav Srushti for 6 years. Some dentist has given 200 acres of area as a donation to RSS at that point of time, and RSS converted all that into social activities where there are 6 different trusts which are running. Goshala, training for people at political level, schools, Krushi, and many other activities. When you work in those activities, I think the people with whom you are working may be industrialists, maybe business people, maybe employees, maybe even somebody else who is working as any other economic level. Most of us get used to work in an environment where all others are also of your same type. I think that doesn't teach you how to be a good human being. But when you work with somebody who is just a peon at some level, and also there is somebody who is the chairman of a company, and all of you are sitting on the same table and discussing a topic, I think that at least taught me a lot of how to deal with somebody, how to learn, how to make things happen. I think around that time in Vileparle, there's a Lokmanya Seva Singha organization. They came and approached me that can I become the president of that organization? Prior to me, I think Dr. Snehata Deshmukh, the retired Vice Chancellor of Mumbai University, was the president. So I requested them. I said, look, I may not be the competent person to take up that position, but they said, we wish that you should do that. And then I became the president of that organization. I think there we have a different structure in which they work. Every 3 years there are elections which are held on the managing committee, and that's a complete social organization. Every 3 years elections are nicely fought and new managing committee gets elected. But some of our last 4 terms, even though managing committees have changed, somehow they found me to be a person who should continue as president. So I think I've been working there. That experience also taught me a lot, because that gives me an opportunity of meeting all kinds of people in social, cultural, educational, and different kinds of fields. Luckily, somewhere in 2019, I think Prime Minister Modi also came there to pray and pay respects to Lord Ganpati, because it was a Ganpati festival. So I got a good opportunity to interact with him, receive him, show him the institution. I am also a member of the board of directors of Parle Tridik Vidyalaya Association, which is also an 100-year-old organization. Looking at the education institution from a management angle is a different experience. One has to struggle with all the laws and regulations made by the government, state government, and the university. But one has to learn how to work within that. I think it's a challenging task, but these 2 activities really make me a better person, because working in different environments, working in spite of the difficulties, is what one makes you better human being. Many people work well because the environment supports them. But I think in social organizations, you work in spite of the other things. That gives you the courage and the habit to find a solution when sometimes there are no roads which are clearly laid down. I think that's the advantage of working in other organizations, which people would call as social work, etc. I won't go and say it's a social work. You are doing it because you wish to do it, and it's a necessity for becoming a good human being.
Sir, that was really nice and very informative and very, I would say, resourceful give and take. And definitely this can be useful for the upcoming entrepreneurs as well as the upcoming CS. Sir, on a lighter note, I would like to just ask you some one-liners, if you can. If not CA.
I have never thought of it, but I think if I was not a CA, possibly I might have been a lecturer, a teacher.
Great. Any future dreams, sir?
Future dreams are always there. I've been living on dreams only. Future dream is to make the firm still grow to an international level and to become a better human being.
Great. And any particular wish in a bucket list?
Normally, I don't carry any wish list. When I start my day, I plan what to do it. Wish list is only to work for more and more people.
Great. And if I ask on a priority, CA, education field, or a social work?
Fortunately, I am able to fix all them in one basket, and therefore, when I work for something, that's my priority. But simultaneously, I am able to work for at least 4 to 5 things at a time. It's like a radio which you put on, you change the station, it goes to the next station. I think it's as simple as that.
Great, sir. Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would like to thank for spending your time, but it's an investment for our organization. What a time you have spent with us, and we'd like to thank, and for that Thanksgiving, this is a small token of appreciation and love from our organization to Mukund Chitale.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think when I read this, Samartha Brahman, Samruddha Brahman, Sampanna Brahman, the idea is very good. let us all try and make this happen in as quick time as possible.